and welcome to Conversations for the Soul, one good sip at a time with Dr. Angie and Yashica B, the Eclectic Mindset Motivator. We are so happy that you could join us today, but we do have a couple favors to ask. One is that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, thank you so much for tuning in with us. We do have a special guest on this evening, and we are so excited to bring her to you once again. This is a part 2. We have Miss Diana Thomas, and as you may recall from our last show, she is a young lady who has experienced COVID and was given the directive by her doctors to go ahead and get her affairs in order. And at this time, I want to just go ahead and bring Yashica B in so that she can say hi to you. And then we will bring in Miss Diana Thomas and we'll give you a little bit of a brief intro for her from Miss Yashica. Here we go. Yashica B. Looks like she may be having some technical difficulties as she had expressed to me a few moments ago. So I do want to take this moment out to just go ahead and introduce to you Miss Diana Thomas. And
hi.
I did it the wrong way. All right, a little bit of a problem there. I don't know what was going on. I was pressing buttons and nothing was happening. But it's good to see you. And I understand that you are really not feeling your best today. So we want to just take this moment to thank you so much for joining us this evening and being willing to talk with us, even though you're not feeling well. So we hope that you definitely feel better. And given the circumstances, please, at any time during this show, if you are unable to go on, please just let us know and we will take it from there. So real quickly, I want to let you know just some background about Miss Diana Thomas. She is a business owner and a combat sport professional, a wife, and a mother of 2. Some additional information about her is that she was fully quarantined prior to contracting COVID and was able to somehow contract COVID back a few months ago. She will bring us up to speed with where we are at this point in time. She does have severe asthma, which is part of why her immune system was probably complicated, but that's also why she was being so extra careful in making sure that she did not contract COVID. So given the fact that she was quarantined, she was doing everything possible to make sure that she did not contract it. There's some information there that we need to pay attention to. And we also need to know that she was in the hospital, and she will bring us more up to speed on how that situation went. She did share with us during our last time together the situation that happened with her while she was in the hospital and how she recovered from that. So without any further ado, I'd like to take this time to just introduce Miss Diana Thomas to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on again. I really appreciate it. And just giving an opportunity to share my story on a platform, and most importantly, hoping that I can answer some questions for people that they can too avoid this for themselves or their family and friends.
Awesome. So what I'd like you to do right now, I just kind of ran through what we were aware of from last time. I'm going to just take a couple of minutes to recap that for us so that everyone knows, because it certainly sounds more I guess, important to hear it from you than to hear it from me as the bystander who just happens to have heard your story. I'd like you to share with our audience what that story is.
Absolutely. And I want to apologize. My voice may go out a little bit. I actually did my first work event out of town this past weekend, and as a result, my asthma has flared and some of my ailments have worsened. So if I pause, I want to apologize ahead of time.
Certainly.
I'm
Let me ask you this.
Yes,
Were your complications that you are experiencing now, are they related to the asthma or related to the COVID?
both. So I'm the ailments that I have related to COVID have been consistent. The past couple of months, I think at the time, well, I guess it's probably been about 2.5 months now. Um, I've been having a better time. The ailments have not been as severe. Actually able to get up and function with my everyday life, but I'm still in pain every day. It's just the pain doesn't prevent me from, getting up, cooking a meal, getting out and running errands. So I have to kind of stay medicated in order to be able to function. But now I had to walk through an airport, 2 layovers, um, or one layover, and then I was working in a confined area wearing a mask the entire day. So as a result, not having enough oxygen to breathe and breathing in a mask, 15 to 17 hours out of a day, it kind of resulted in me being stuffy. And then my lungs are just trying to get adjusted to breathing without without having that mask on. So okay, so you asked
So
for
I
what is it
am
doing? Go
so sorry to hear that. And I want to go ahead and bring Yashica B in. Please be patient with her. As I mentioned before, she is having some technical difficulties, but we're going to go
ahead.
ahead and bring her in at this point and allow her to just say hello to you and greet you and so forth. Okay, Yashika, we have had a little brief introduction with Diana, but as you know, it's customary for you to come on and greet our audience. So it's time for you to do just that.
Hey, listen, that's fine. It's going in and out big time, so I don't even mind staying in the backstage, I mean, the back room, because I don't want to take from her. Because what Diana has to share is so important, and I heard a little bit. It's going in and out of your
So it looks like we are experiencing some issues there. But Diana, if you could just continue with what you were saying, I want to bring our audience up to speed. So where you left off, if you could, I would appreciate it. Sorry about cutting you
That's
off.
okay. No, that's okay. You asked me to recap. Last year,
Yes.
when COVID hit, I quarantined because I knew, based on my health history with being a severe asthmatic, um, excuse me, that I was going to need to stay quarantined. So I restricted limitations in my home. If I met with girlfriends, we typically met on our patio, trying to keep distance. I was spraying people down. If they had to come in and use the restroom, I was spraying them with Lysol. There were a lot of precautions that were taken. And my fiance at the time worked, was is military, and we believe that that's how I contracted the virus, is somewhere within her unit. Tested positive, and as a result, I caught it. I had been having some issues with my asthma, so I thought, and my it just worsened. So I probably was sick for about a month or so before actually being admitted into the hospital with COVID.
Okay. So now, how was that experience in the hospital? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Um, I think I kind of mentioned on the first part one that we did. It was really difficult. I couldn't speak. So, my voice was completely gone. I said when I did speak, I was coughing uncontrollably. And you're by yourself because they're not letting anyone into the hospital. So there's really no one there to be an advocate for you or to ask questions.
Or to be a supporter for you, emotional support. That
Correct.
had to be very challenging.
It was, but I have to admit that all of the nurses and doctors that I had were amazing.
Okay.
Out of all of my hospital visits, I think throughout my life, that was probably the time that I've been the most scared and the time that I felt the most supported by medical staff. They were very patient, they were very kind. They made sure they kept me comfortable. They were accommodating. I'm vegetarian, so I wasn't eating meat, and the menu didn't have anything that I could eat other than lettuce and carrots. So they allowed my brother and sister-in-law to bring food up, and they held it in the refrigerator. And there were just all of these uncommon acts of kindness that they showed me the entire time that I was there. So it was very difficult, but I can't say that there was a lack of support. I felt alone because my loved ones weren't there, but I have to say that the medical staff that was there made me feel less alone.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Recently, I had an opportunity to uh, watch the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett, and one of their topics was about the invisible Black woman. And
Mm,
boy, immediately I thought about you and I wondered what that experience was like. I couldn't remember exactly what you had said about that part of the experience last time. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm so glad to know that we can go to some places and be serviced properly. So
yeah.
thanks for
I do
sharing
have
that.
to add I have to add that all of my doctors were Black, and all of my nurses were Black with the exception of, I think, one or two. So one
Okay.
was helping out another, and then I had one nurse that um, she may have been a Latino, um, but everyone else was Black, and they were amazing. And so just from, like I said, past experiences, I'm sure that the fact that they were Black and kind of understood, and there was always a little bit more time. Not that we have great nurses and doctors of all ethnicities, so I want to make that very, very clear. But just from my experiences, I definitely notice a huge difference with Black nurses and doctors.
Very interesting. I don't know if I'm going to say that's a good thing or bad thing because it's kind of a mixture in there because it's good
Yes,
because they were so good to you, but
yeah,
it's bad that you have also had the other experience. So,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's good to know that we are making some strides along those areas because, not that long ago, not many of us would be able to give that same report. So thank you for sharing that. That is so awesome to know that there are that many medical professionals that are people of color. So,
Yes,
that's a good thing. And that we remain compassionate towards everyone and not just, people of um, other colors or cultures or ethnicities or what have you. So that's good information. So the other piece to this is I know from the last time we spoke that you are a mother and then you have two children. Is that correct?
yes. And
Okay.
got a bunch of bonus babies, but two children biologically.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about how they're doing with all of this mommy stuff going on.
Kids are resilient, and I didn't really have an opportunity to see if my daughter had a difficult time with it because I was texting her, um,
Mhm.
and she just kind of I was sitting like texting her the last things that I could tell her, because at this point I'm counting my hours, right? I don't know how much longer it's going to be. And I'm sending her everything that I can think of that I would want to tell her, and making sure that she understands how much I love her. And she kind of joked in a text message and said, "Are there any other gems you want to drop on me, mom?" And I said, "No, that's it." But my son, I actually called him, and he was getting ready to go to the military. Well, he's in the military. He was going out in the field, and he had to find this out the day before he was leaving, where he would not have any more communication. So, I've never seen my son. He's never an emotional person, and we just both cried on the phone, and I'm sure it was really hard for him. And then he had a little bit of a hard time after. I know my wife mentioned that when speaking with him, he was having a hard time because he wouldn't call me. I felt a little, hurt because I didn't get the response for my children. I think when you're older and you think you're going to lose someone, the first thing you do is figure out how can I be there all the time. And my son kind of did the opposite. So he still has not spoken to me about it, but I knew that this was traumatic for him. So hopefully one day we'll be in a space where we can actually talk about it and he not be emotional behind it.
Yeah, well, as a mother, one, but as someone who has worked with children for and young adults for over 20 years, I know that sometimes that response is, oh my gosh, this is way too much for me to
Yeah,
handle. I can't do this. I'm just going to pray that everything is okay and I'm going to keep it moving, because he may have been, I certainly, I can't speak for him, but he may have been afraid of letting you see him feel
that's what
vulnerable.
I said.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly what she said. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's certainly understandable. It may not be what you were looking for, but it was what he needed in
Yeah.
that moment. And as mothers, we can understand what, our children sometimes need. Their needs are sometimes different than our wants. So
Right.
I get it. I do get it. And so moving along, you were able to talk to us about the information that the doctor gave you in that moment of, should I say, crisis. Like what were the doctors saying at that point with regard to the COVID?
Basically that they were doing everything that they could, to save me. So I was on a wing that they typically have for tuberculosis. And
Mhm.
in that room, you are completely quarantined. They have a machine that is circulating the air and pushing it out of the building. And the doctors are coming in, but you're also under 24-hour surveillance where they can monitor you. And during that time, they kept repeating, we're doing everything that we can to help. We're doing everything that we can, until it got to a point where I think my vitals look really good. My blood pressure looked good. My oxygen level was definitely low. I was on oxygen the entire time that I was there. Um, and but I guess the numbers when they draw your blood, all of those numbers were not where they should have been. And so it became alarming when they finally came in and said, we're doing everything we can to save you, but it's not looking good. And then the next doctor that came in advised me to start making calls to say my goodbyes. And that's when they said, and I was like, because I've always been a person that I ask questions.
Mhm.
I do better understanding. And so my question was very clear. I said, am I going to die? And I remember asking that twice. The first time was there was a doctor that, I remember him grabbing both of my hand with both of his hands with his glove. And, he just kept squeezing and patting my hand. He kept saying, we're doing everything that we can to save you. And then the second time, when the doctor came in, I said, am I going to die? And he said, you need to start making your calls. And then a nurse brought in some paperwork. I had to um, fill out, a living will, not the living will, but your final paperwork, the do not resuscitate, and the other forms that are necessary in the event that anything happens. My emergency contact was there. But when you don't have those things on file, the hospital wants to ensure that they have
Right,
it. So
right. So moving forward, you were given that information. Then what was the next milestone that took place?
after I started making calls, um, and sending text messages for my goodbyes. I received a call that following morning from an infectious disease doctor, woman, and I don't remember any of the doctors' names. I'm sure they're on all of my medical charts, but um, she called and said that I had qualified for a procedure. It was a test procedure called the convalescent plasma procedure. If I took the plasma, there was like a 30% chance of survival. But if I didn't take the procedure, there was no chance that I was going to make it through. It was just a matter of hours before my organs would start shutting down.
So my assumption is that you took it.
Took it. Yeah, one of my best friends is an RN, and we immediately called her and asked her about it. And because I was in the hospital by myself, I needed someone else to look over the paperwork. And the machine that they have in the room with you is so loud that you can't really hear. And so I can remember my best friend and my now wife saying, "Call me when the doctors are in the room so I can hear what they're saying."
Okay.
And I'm like, I can barely hear them, because of this machine. And
Right.
so I took pictures of all of the forms and I texted them to my wife and my best friend.
Okay.
And I had them look it over. It just so happens, my friend had been working with COVID patients, as well as information regarding COVID. She said, "Give me just a few minutes." And when she called back, she said, "Take it immediately. Sign the papers, give it to them, and take it."
Okay. So you took it, and then what was the outcome?
My numbers stopped dropping. So
Okay.
I
Well,
was
praise God
really,
for that.
yes, I was really scared at first because they had a deadline. So when they offer this treatment, at the time there were stipulations in place. You could not have been on a ventilator,
Mm-hmm.
and the severity of your COVID had to be that your last step would be death. So I learned this after I had already taken the plasma.
Mm-hmm.
There's something called dimer D, I think it is. There is levels that they discuss on the severity of your your health when you're in the hospital. And the one that I had basically stated that, you know, death would be my next option, or the end result. Um,
Wow. Now
so
that had to be quite scary. Were you scared?
honestly, no.
Okay.
Um, I had, the time that I was there, and I don't know if it had to do with that. I was really just at peace with the results. I remember texting a friend and saying, you know, "I'm really okay. I'm okay. This is very difficult, and it's hard to process, but if I don't make it, I'm okay with that." And my daughter just walked in. She might be able to answer that question about how she felt about when I was in the hospital and I texted
Okay.
her that I may not be coming back home. No, she,
Is she willing to do that?
yeah, come
Well,
on,
I'll be gentle.
come here. You don't have to get on the camera. You could just show your face.
Hey,
Hello, how are you?
guys, the lighting's a little bad.
Good.
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thank you so much for joining us. We were talking to Mom about her experience, and I asked her, how did you handle that experience?
Um, it was pretty hard actually, but I knew she was feeling even worse and she didn't want us to worry about it. So I kind of just like had to keep a smile on my face. And then like being in the hospital, I know people were telling her to like go ahead and write her will out and stuff. So I didn't want to like aid that thought that she was gonna die. So I had to like just be positive and let her know that she was gonna come home and stuff. But it was really hard. I was crying every day. It was bad.
Oh, wow. I know that was tough, but you are a strong young lady to really just hold up that strong front, that smile, that positivity in spite of what it was sounding like. I'm so proud of you. And I
Thank
know
you.
Mom is too. I know she's very proud of you.
Thank
You
you.
are a beautiful young lady. Thank you for giving
Thank
us
you
those
for
couple
having
moments of your
me.
time.
Bye. Y'all be safe.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Oh, what a
So
nice
we're
little
in that
treat
for the
we got.
first time.
Yeah, what a nice little treat we got. So, as we move forward, I want to hop into where we are today because it sounds obviously you recovered. When was that you actually recovered?
So I'm technically not fully recovered.
When did you come
I,
home from the
I
hospital?
came home the first week of August.
Okay.
And I have been in recovery this entire time. So probably um, up until the end of October, beginning of November, I was kind of pushing myself. I had moments where I remember I'd be miserable, most days. But
Okay.
whenever people would come around to check on me, I would immediately have this burst of energy. You know, um,
Hmm.
interacting as normal, but then I'd pay for it the days after.
Okay. Okay.
So
So,
I the adrenaline of just wanting to have some type of human interaction
and
and
normalcy. Yeah, I
all of
get
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely get that. So we have a question from Yashica B. She says, how is it living with COVID-19 now? Like, where are you now? Because that was back in August, then you walked us through October. So now where are you now that we're in May?
So I still have long COVID, and long COVID it's referred to long COVID with some others call us long haulers,
Mhm.
where we have developed other ailments that prevent us from functioning as we did prior to having COVID. So the position I'm in now is I have difficulty breathing a lot. I still cannot lay on my back. Sometimes I lose hearing in one or both of my ears. I have headaches, I have body aches, swelling of my feet, ankles, knees, numbness, tingling, um, face twitches. Um, there's just this long list of things that now affect me that did not before.
Okay, so that was my next question. These things did not affect you prior to
No,
contracting the COVID.
no. And
So
I've
although
gained
you
an
had,
excessive amount of weight. That's something else that's happened. So I'm sure it has to do with the fact that I've not been able to be as active, but the amount of weight gain is even concerning to my doctors. So
wow. So now what are they attributing that weight gain to? Is that
I don't
the
know.
medications or
We
they're
have
not
no
sure.
idea. So my blood work comes back normal.
Mhm.
And I had an MRI, and they had done an EKG in the doctor's office. It came up abnormal. They did another, and it looked like to be okay. But every once in a while, it's not as frequent as it used to be, but it still occurs. I get these rapid heartbeats,
Mhm.
or other times it feels as if someone is stabbing me in my chest.
Oh
Just
my
really, really
goodness.
sharp pains.
Ooh.
So the best thing to do is just kind of, breathe through it. And I don't know if I'm just learning to live with it now, but they're not as severe. But it's
Mhm.
because I have found a way to manage my pain. So
Okay. And how are you managing your pain?
actually,
Uh-oh,
I
that sounded like that might have been a bad question.
no. So I've had to resort to edibles.
Okay.
That has been the only thing that has worked. Tylenol doesn't work. My doctor, when I spoke to him about it, I also spoke to my neurologist, and they all asked me, how was that working for you? I was someone that I would swear this would never be anything that I would do prior to COVID, but it was recommended by a friend to try. And I have a friend that lives with MS and a couple other friends with other health issues, and they've explained that that's been the only thing that has helped with their pain management.
Okay. So
So
are you
it's
finding the same success with that? Or has
yes,
that been ongoing successful?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I can definitely notice a difference. Now, there was a period of time, I think in the beginning, I would let myself experience a lot of the pains.
Mhm.
And I would say, okay, I'll take something, it'll subside, but nothing would allow it to subside. The only thing that seemed to work would be this. So
Okay.
I've
So,
learned to take in moderation to be able to function throughout the day and to keep the pains at a minimal.
so Yashica says she would rather do that than be on all those prescription drugs
Yeah.
anyway. So that's
Well,
one
my
way of
doctor
looking at
said,
it. And
yeah,
the other piece to it is like, I wonder, so have you had any side effects from the edibles themselves?
no, none at all. And
Okay.
that was one of the things. So I have a follow-up appointment tomorrow. But my doctors have been very consistent on asking me about my pain management. So when he went through my list of ailments and he said, I'm not going to prescribe anything because any prescription medications they give me, they all have side effects and
Okay.
they have other ailments that they could create. So if this is working and there are zero side effects, then that's what I need to stick with.
Okay.
So,
So clearly that's a natural remedy as opposed to,
yes.
the manufactured scientific versions and all that. So, at some point we have to do what we have to do to be comfortable so that we can function.
Yes.
And that's, I know that's a debatable question. That's a question, or maybe for another day, that we may want to explore a little bit further, a little deeper. But as I'm looking at you now and listening to your story, I'm concerned about how, like, is there a light at the end of the tunnel at this point? Are you
That's a
seeing
good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know. There are days that I wake up and I'm just like, how much longer am I going to have to go through this? But then another day comes and it's not as bad as one of the previous days. So I have to hope that there is. I'm still waiting to get into a rehabilitation center here. So I'm meeting more and more people that are living with long COVID, some with symptoms not as bad as mine have been, others with some that have actually been worse. So even with everything that I'm living with, I'm still not as bad as other people that have developed long COVID.
Okay. So let me ask you this. With all that you have experienced, would you say that you are better off now than you were back in October, or worse off at this point?
Definitely better.
Okay, definitely.
In October, I still couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't fix a meal. I could barely walk to the restroom by myself.
Mm-hmm.
There were everything that we're used to doing on our own. I was unable to do it.
Okay.
My
So
wife
now
and my
you
daughter
can.
had to do everything. Now I can. I can
Awesome.
actually cook in the kitchen. I can, enjoy a drink if I want to. I
Okay.
can walk up and down the stairs. Um, it's been a couple of months now, but I got really excited because I don't think we realize when we're walking up and down stairs, we walk one foot after the other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was unable to do that for months, probably 6 months. So I would have to take a step and then put the other foot on the same step and hold the banister. And it would take me a few minutes just to get up and down my stairs.
Wow.
So the day that I don't even realize, when it happened, I was actually able to take one step after the other. And for me, that was it was a huge accomplishment when I was able to bathe myself. But it was even more of an accomplishment to be able to walk up and down the stairs without assistance,
Awesome.
and be able to do it without falling or losing my balance. So yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that things are coming along, that they are at least progressing. Yashika is asking, what are your thoughts on the vaccine, since there's been so much conversation about that at this point?
Um, I am not for the vaccine at all.
Okay. Talk to
Um,
us about that.
so given a lot of the information that I received when I was in the hospital and information that there's a lot of inconsistent details within the media. I think, from what I see, people pull the things that make them feel good, which many times they don't do their own research or use common sense or logic, behind what the media gives us. They've stated that the vaccine has the antibodies, but
Mm-hmm.
technically, the antibodies are in anyone who's already recovered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the antibody saved me, and I didn't have to get a vaccine. I received the antibodies from someone who had recovered.
So, with that being the case, but the vaccine is supposed to prevent you from getting to that point, right?
It's supposed to,
Okay.
but I personally know several people, quite a bit, that have still contracted the virus severely after being vaccinated. And I know several people who have had family members that have died from the virus
Oh,
after
after being fully
after
vaccinated? Wow.
being vaccinated. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So those inconsistencies is part of what confirms for me that it's just not a good choice. And then there are so many different strands of this virus. So
Mm-hmm.
even my time being in the hospital, the infectious disease doctors, they have no idea what this virus does. They still don't know because it affects everyone differently. Some people have it and they're asymptomatic. Other people have it and they just lose their sense of taste and smell. Some people have a fever. Some people don't. Some people, lose their appetite. Some people have vomiting and diarrhea. I mean, there's this list of potential symptoms that one group of people may experience while another will not. So if there is no consistency with this virus, how can you come up with a vaccine that can prevent you from getting it? And the vaccines the virus is continuously mutating.
Mm-hmm.
So what
So, what would you
virus
suggest?
as it is?
What do you see as a pathway to normalcy from here? A pathway to being out of the crisis that we're in?
I don't really know that we have a normacy. I think that we're going to have to create a new normal, or really, it's already been created for us. We are going to have to be responsible for our own health. We have to be responsible for making good choices about where we go, um, the people that we're around, the interactions that we have.
So,
Keeping
talk to me about what that looks like. What does that responsibility that you are indicating? What does that look like?
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, I'm so
Give me
sorry.
1 second, if you will.
Yeah. So, one of the things that Yashica just mentioned while we're waiting for her to return, it says, one of my closest friends experienced that after being fully vaccinated, and she is a nurse. And she also has indicated that the death rate has declined. So I'm going to ask you, Diana. Originally, I asked you, what does that look like? What does that responsibility? How does that unfold? What does that look like to us?
Can you ask me that one more time? Because I heard two different questions. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So you mentioned that we're going to have to take responsibility for our own health. We're going to have to take responsibility for where we go, who we hang out with, so forth and so on. So in your way of looking at things, how does that look to you? What does that look like to you? How is that responsible person going to function in society at this point without the vaccine?
Well, I can speak on how I function. So I had to do my first traveling trip with my job. I'm sorry.
Oh, so you have returned to work?
Yeah, so I gradually got in. I had an event in December. I did one in March,
Mhm.
but this was my first traveling trip that
Okay.
was necessary.
Oh my goodness, you're having a
Um,
hard time. No apologies necessary, but
but
we're not going to keep you on here much longer because we see that it's declining at this point. So, and we don't want to be responsible for that.
that's okay. So I did, like I mentioned, I had to fly to Wisconsin, and I was a little paranoid because one of the other issues that I've developed is a social anxiety.
Hmm.
So I found one or two places in town that I feel comfortable going to, well ventilated, spaced enough. I can kind of create my own atmosphere. But um, with this trip, I was a little nervous because I have to go through an airport with people. And
Hmm.
I don't do really well around a lot of people right now.
Okay.
And so I wore two masks, travel with gloves, I travel with Lysol wipes. I made sure that I carry soap. I have a is it Dr. Bronner's? There's a little miniature soap. I keep it in my purse.
Okay.
Um, so whenever I go to the restroom, I keep sanitizer. I'm making sure that I have everything to protect myself.
Okay. So
And
when you see people without masks at this point, what's going through your mind?
they're stupid.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I mean, I guess
Even
I
if
don't
they're
want to
fully
say that
vaccinated?
because I'm sorry.
Even if they're fully vaccinated, you still have
Yes,
to think,
because the media has made people believe that if you're fully vaccinated, that you're safe. You're
okay.
not. You're not. I actually had a question for you too. My wife just walked in.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they're you're not safe, at all. It is still very much an issue as it is without without the vaccine. And so when I see people that are moving freely, they're not taking into account that even though the symptoms for them may be minimal now that they have the vaccine, it may not be minimal for another family member or friend or the person they're walking past in the grocery store. Or,
So,
so all of these people can be affected by this. And I just think it's being negligent.
okay. So, what I'm hearing you say is we should still be exercising caution. We should still be being responsible, wearing our masks, making sure that we are doing the social distancing, washing our hands, sanitizing, all of those things that were originally recommended to us is what I'm
Right.
hearing you say is important, even if you are fully vaccinated. So
Hmm.
that's certainly something that they have. I know that they've been saying that we should continue to do those things, although just yesterday or the day before, they did say that you could stop wearing a mask in most places if you wanted to.
I
What
will
was
wear masks forever.
yeah, okay. You said
Yeah,
forever. What was
forever.
your experience on the plane?
Very, very difficult. So thankfully, um, my colleague and I, we traveled together, and he sat with me the entire time that I had to take something before I actually flew. But I remember going to the restroom, and I watched woman after woman after woman come out of the restroom, rinse their fingers under the water, dry them off, and walk out. And
Mm,
I'm thinking, if you're washing your hands like this after using the restroom, you're not washing them any other time. So people are definitely not taking this seriously.
wow. Wow. That's interesting.
And
So,
I wanted to stop you. Did you have a question for my wife? She actually just walked in, so we could catch her for 1 second if you do.
sure.
Okay.
If she doesn't mind.
No, just come around. Just
I am nobody's
That's okay.
friend.
I'm not either, but
How you
Kayla got
doing?
on.
Hello,
We
how
can
are
let you
you?
go on.
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thank you for taking a moment out to talk with us. We've been talking to Diana and finding out that she's still experiencing some things, and we just kind of want to know what your experience has been with all of this. You're still smiling. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about that, about your experience.
Absolutely. As for me, I didn't really have a lot of the symptoms early on, or even as I was going through it. So I was a little sluggish, a little weak at times, but not so much so where I can't press through. And it was after where I ended up getting, I guess I say most of my symptoms, maybe about 1:30 one night, middle of the night. This was about maybe 3 weeks after I tested negative. I ended up jumping up out of my sleep in the middle of the night because I couldn't breathe. And I went to the bathroom and used the bathroom. I was like, okay, maybe it's just, maybe it's panic, sleep. I don't know. And so I came back and lay back in the bed, but I noticed as I lay back in the bed, I was having problems breathing. So I sat back up because that seemed to be the only way I can breathe. And so I said, okay.
So now, was this prior to Diana contracting it, or after?
No, this is after. This is after.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was actually home from the hospital and in my recovery. So she was my primary caretaker at the time. And I wake up in the middle of the night and she's sitting in a chair on the side of the bed with a pillow under her head. And she's sitting up but facing forward. And she's like, I felt like I was going to drown.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's one of the symptoms that they talk about, is because your lungs are, pretty much your lungs, your diaphragm, this virus attacks the respiratory system.
So, wow. So was it necessary for you to become hospitalized, or?
No, so I wasn't hospitalized. That was the unique thing. So I didn't experience, like I said, much of the symptoms during COVID. It wasn't until after COVID that I started getting hit with a lot of the things, which was a little, I guess you could say, I was a little surprised and shocked because for me, I'm a fighter, so I could fight through a cold. I could fight through congestion. I fight through it all. So it felt no different than one of the moments where I was fighting through a moment when I was just feeling under the weather.
Okay.
However, I don't know what the inside was doing, because whatever it was doing, it was causing me not to be able to breathe.
Right.
And
so then did you test positive at that point?
No, I still was negative. So this was after, so we were positive around, during the same time frame.
Okay. So you have been positive.
Yes.
She
now our daughter was negative.
Correct. So she stayed in home with us the whole time. She was negative. However, I was positive and Diana was positive. So we were positive during the same time. And the biggest thing was I remember taking a bleach rag with water and bleach, and I would walk around like if I gotta leave out of the I won't even say the comfort, but out of our room into anywhere else into the house, I would have that rag in my hand and I would walk with it. If I'm touching any surfaces, I'm wiping as I'm going. So that way I had to do whatever I could to protect our daughter in the same aspect. So
okay, sure, absolutely. So let me ask you this: what is your feeling about the vaccine?
Honestly, I'm in the military, so if the military isn't making me take it, I'm not taking it. Okay. That's just my personal feelings about it. Is the military forces everything on us, and it's the reason why they're not forcing it on me. I might not know that reason, but for me, that's enough to sit uneasy with me.
Okay, so your experience or Diana's experience is not necessarily what you're basing your opinion on at this point. You're looking at what's not being said.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, at some point, will I get it? Most likely, I probably would. However, I think once more testing, once more, I don't want to
time under our belt, right?
lab rats, but once some time has lapsed, then I see how nobody's developed a third eye or extra arm.
So, so you just kind of waiting it out. Y'all work it out, and then I'll jump in.
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay, I understand that. So, in looking at the long haul at this point, what can you tell us about that experience with Diana? What you're seeing now?
Yeah, compared to how I was in the beginning. Yeah, because
Well,
I guess that's a really good question because I know how I feel, but I guess I never asked the changes that you see.
overall, I see progression. It's slow, really slow but steady. I don't think she's fully back to herself. Um, I think there's days. Some days are better than the other. Um, she gets short of breath really easy now. Um, there's times when it seems like she's so fatigued
Mm-hmm.
that she's not able to kind of move about or get around as much. And then there's times where um, I don't know, you seem like everything on you hurt or ache, and it's like there's nothing I can do to make it stop. And so, for
So,
the most part, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay, so what I was going to say, are you carrying on with your regular? Are you able to now go back to work and carry on with your regular duties? And
I have. I am back at work. I've noticed though within myself, there's some things I can't fully do like I used to.
okay.
When it comes to working out, PT, exercising, when I was younger, I had asthma when I was a child, and I outgrew it or whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I found myself very winded now, doing any type of extreme anything, or just I won't even say a moderate, uh, maybe in between extreme to moderate or extreme. I'm really, really winded, whereas before I wouldn't be.
Okay. So I just want to thank you for giving us a few moments of your time, and thank you
Absolutely.
for allowing Diana to share some information with us and for you to do it as
Absolutely.
well. It's good information. We need to know this, and it's just know that you're in our thoughts and prayers that both
Thank
of you will fully recover. It may be I'm hoping that it's just part of a process and that
Absolutely.
you will get there. And
Absolutely.
if there's any last words of advice that you can offer to us, then we would take those words of advice and then get back to Diana and try to close out this interview.
Okay. The biggest thing as far as advice, I would tell everybody, don't take it lightly. It wasn't until it was right in my face and I almost lost my wife that I didn't take it lightly before, but I really didn't take it lightly after that. So just don't take it lightly. Do whatever you can to protect your family, especially our children. I see a lot of times the parents have on masks, children don't. Still protect them as well. Regardless of what they think. Stuff isn't in concrete to say that their bodies can fight it off as much. So just as much as you can, protect yourselves.
Wow. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank,
And we certainly hope that you get better,
thank
that
you.
you recover as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right. So we were able to connect with the family. That's good stuff.
Word.
Witnesses.
Good.
So it's so good to know that you have that support system in your wife and in your daughter and your son and all that. So it's good to know that things are moving along. And just if you could real quickly just talk to us a little bit about the harvesting of the antibodies and all of that stuff. Talk to us about what you believe is a necessary thing at this point.
I think that it's necessary that people definitely donate plasma.
Okay.
If you or someone that you know have recovered from COVID, donate plasma. Each plasma donation can save up to 3 people. I shared the link with Yashica earlier today. I think right before the show started. If
Would
you
that
are
be
unsure,
ccpp19.org?
correct?
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, that's up on the
they
screen now.
will ask several questions about um, if you've had COVID, and they actually do an antibodies test. If you are unsure, there are some people who never had symptoms, so may not even be aware that they have the antibodies, but it's definitely needed.
Okay. All right. So we definitely want to make sure that that's something that we follow up with, that we are looking at really just getting more knowledge and information about the antibodies and the donor process in terms of plasma and how that can help us in this fight to get out of the crisis stage of COVID. Okay. Are there any last words of advice? Any last thoughts that you have? Anything that we
Yeah,
in this conversation?
absolutely. I just want to encourage people to do their own research. There are a lot of COVID survivor groups out there, and I'm part of I know that there's some on social media. I've stayed away from social media, but I periodically will go on. I'm part of a long COVID support group on Facebook. Um, and so if you have family and friends that maybe have recovered and they are experiencing any type of health ailments, encourage them to talk to their doctors about it. Check out some of these COVID groups so you could get more information. Wear a mask. I know that we don't want to wear them, but if it will save our lives or someone around us, then it's really important for us to do it.
Absolutely. Now, you said that you're going to be wearing your mask forever.
Forever.
Okay.
It has definitely changed how I move. I even watch movies, and when I'm watching them, I'm thinking, how did they even do this? Like, I don't want to eat a piece of birthday cake that anybody has blown on, a candle out on.
Mm.
I've always had policies like my kids know, pretty much anyone who knows me, I I am really, really big on cleaning your hands all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that was even prior to
COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Don't come in my kitchen until you clean your hands.
Yes.
Don't open my refrigerator unless your hands are clean.
Right.
Don't get a plate out. Don't get a cup. Don't, wash your hands.
Yes. Yes.
So, my kids are the same way. So my daughter I didn't even realize it until recently. She washes her hands twice all the time. She was
Okay.
doing this prior to COVID. And, I used to tell my children that if you don't have big suds on your hands are not clean,
Wow.
So if you've washed them and the suds are not sudsy, you need to rinse your hands and you need to rewash.
Right.
So those are things that are really big for me.
Right.
I think that we have to start thinking about having a healthier environment for ourselves. With my wife being in the military, she works in the chemical field. And so she's bleaching everything all the time. And so for her, it's all about cleanliness. We clean everything. We clean our banisters. I clean the walls, vinegar, water. And this was before COVID. So even now, we're doing it even more. We keep Lysol at the door. My daughter does hair, and so people have to wear a mask when they come in, and they have a room that they can be in. So we have created a new normal for us that allows us to at least create a safety net for ourselves.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for pushing through, giving us your time and your energy, and I know it's very valuable. If never before, I know that it's valuable now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and it was really good to get this information. I do want to draw everyone's attention to this link that's online, that's on the screen right now, and that is to find out information about donating plasma. If you have the antibodies, it's very important for you to donate plasma. It can save a life. And my understanding is that everyone who donates plasma is able to save 3 lives. I believe that's what I heard.
Yeah, when I did the research, it said one plasma donation could save the lives of 3 people.
Okay.
So the unfortunate thing is the hospitals are not pushing the plasma as much as they should.
Now, why do you think that is?
Well, because, big pharma, they make more money off of you getting a vaccine.
That
So
sounds like a whole conversation for another day.
it is.
Yes.
They weren't pushing it before. The Mayo Clinic is who led this test procedure. And at the time, I think they were only giving the plasma to roughly 66,000 people in the US.
Mhm.
And so I had never heard anything about it. And it was not being talked about. And then they came through and said that it didn't work. And I was like, no, it does work because it saved my life. So I
Wow.
know that it works.
Mhm.
But they weren't pushing it because they could put you on a ventilator. And also, in my heart of hearts, I believe that they had more of an opportunity to see the decline of how this virus worked from different ethnicities, different age groups. So it goes a lot for me. I think it goes a lot deeper than the hospitals just doing what's right. I am very blessed that I was chosen because I
Mhm.
could have not been. I don't know how the stars aligned, and the universe just felt that I was the one that should have received that donation. But I am eternally grateful that I'm here to even, my daughter graduates from high school this year, that I was able to get married. That was something that was big for me when I almost died. I was like, I survived. We got to get married.
Oh,
So,
wow. And
there are,
we are grateful as well.
yeah,
And on that note, I think that should be the closing note at this point. Gratitude. If we could all just practice a little bit more gratitude, I know that the world would be a better place.
absolutely.
One of the things that I always suggest to people is that we just make a list every day or every evening, just get it in, do 5 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, I'm sorry, in the evening before bed, whatever it may be. Make a list and make it a tangible written list of all the things that you're grateful for, because there is some power, some medicine in gratitude. So, with that being said, I just want to thank you for coming to talk with us today. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hang on to Yashica due to some internet problems,
Okay.
but I know that she is grateful to have you on as well. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
sharing your family with us. And we just want to make sure that you touch base with us every now and then and let us know how you're doing.
Absolutely.
We want to
Absolutely.
follow the long haul. We want to know,
Thank you.
things are progressing. And please, if you need us for anything, reach out to us. You know how to reach us. It's at
Certainly
the
will.
bottom of the screen, conversationsforthesoul@gmail.com.
Thank you guys for sharing your platform with me. I appreciate this dearly.
Yes, you are quite welcome. Thank you so much to all of our viewers and our listeners. We thank you for coming to share in this segment with us, this episode, but also for being there with us along the way. We ask that you like, share, subscribe, and tune in. We thank you, we appreciate you, and we are grateful for you. Everyone, I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day, and we are glad to be back in the saddle. We look forward to talking with you soon, and we'll be keeping everyone up to speed on what it is that's happening with Miss Diana as we get the information. God
Thank
bless you
you.
all. Take
Bye.
care.